Testing audio. If you can hear me, give me a shout out in the chat box. I'm having some audio issues here. Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome to the VIP biweekly webinar series of Agency Platform. Today we're going to talk a little bit about lead generation and go over some maybe not so traditional lead generation strategies. Let me just update a couple things before we get started here. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so a few of the things that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about, well, the more general beaten path to generating leads, but we're also going to talk about the ability to scrape leads per a geo target and what to do with scraped leads, how to verify them, how to email them if the debate on whether or not physical mail is worth pursuing for lead generation. And then we'll also be able to talk a little bit about retargeting leads that you have scraped. So before we dive into that, has anyone ever scraped leads in a lead generation effort? In other words, you would have bought one of these lead scraper programs like leadscrape.com or RedScraper or Local Scraper, and you simply crawl local directories, pull out a list of local businesses, and it allows you to generate leads, well, really by the thousands, and then either send out an email or a physical mail piece to them. Okay, I think I'm trying to figure out what the raised hand means in the chat. Not many. Okay. So one of the primary reasons on why scraping leads is a viable option, mainly it's by the quantities, but you can't just scrape leads alone. So let's say that if you were going to target, your target market was, let's say, Denver, Colorado, and you wanted to target all dentists in Denver, Colorado. If you had a scraper, you would be able to crawl and pull out all of the primary business information for dentists in Colorado, and then you would be able to send them either a physical mail piece or an email. Now, email is difficult, yeah, because you have the whole spam and the delivery rate, and it's debatable on how much of a success rate you can have with that. But if you have a physical mail piece in tandem with it, it will help a lot. Has anyone ever ran a physical mail campaign? I had a survey from go out to several hundred agencies about 2 months ago, and one of the most successfully pulled options for lead generation for marketing agencies was physical mail pieces. So even with physical mail, of course, you're going to need somewhere to send that physical mail. And scrapers, of course, can be used to pull physical mail because it's going to pull all the addresses in a local area. Now, whenever you're using a local scraper, I've used localscraper.com. Let me throw this in the box for you. It's really cheap. Let me see if I can find how cheap it is. Local map scraper. A lot of these scrapers are a one-time cost, and then that's it. Some of the one-time costs is as low as $50 one-time cost. Let me see if I can send this to the entire audience. Localscraper.com is one option, but then there's also leadscrape.com and probably a handful of other ones if you're really wanting to go through them. Let me see if I see any others that stick out to me. So on local scrape, you can even set it to scrape whether it's Yelp, if you're wanting to scrape Yelp. Some of the agencies that I consult on lead generation, Yelp is their primary target where they're pulling leads out of. And then, of course, Google, my business listing, scraping out of there. And then what you'd want to do is create a landing page, right? And from that landing page, you would want to be able to drive your traffic there, either from the email or from the physical mail piece. Now, whenever you're scraping, you're going to want to install the scraper on, well, you can install it on your primary PC, but almost all the scraping options that are out there, it's going to be something that you download onto your local computer. And from there, you would run it. Now, if you haven't ever used proxies before, a proxy is just, well, it will make it seem like when you're crawling to pull the different addresses out of a directory that, you're simulating multiple different computers, so it looks natural. So most scrapers require you to load it with what's called proxies. And you can get proxies either for free or you could pay for a proxy server. So if you wanted a free proxy list, let me get down to a free one. Here's 9 best free and anonymous proxies that are out there. Actually, I think I'm going to throw over one that their free proxy list. Now, one of the issues with using free proxies is going to be, right, that a lot of people will probably be using them, and some of them may no longer work. So with the local scraper, that particular scraper tool, you can test your proxies with it, see if they're working or not, so you know that you're not wasting all of your time. And depending on the proxy you're using will depend on how fast you can scrape. Some proxies are really slow. But you would literally, on a proxy list like this, just copy a list of proxies and you would paste it into your scrape tool and you'd run it. And then if you wanted to set it, for example, and for Denver, Colorado, to pull out all of the dentists, it's going to pull out all the dentists in the area. If you wanted to set it to nationwide, to pull out dentists nationwide, it can even do that. I've known companies that scrape up to 20,000 leads per month. Well, I've known some companies that'll scrape over 20,000 leads in a day, but you can definitely scrape 20,000 leads in a month, and you can push an email campaign towards them. Or if you wanted to qualify it down even further, you could run a physical mail piece. Now, of course, you don't want to run a physical mail piece on 20,000 leads because that costs you a tremendous amount of money. But sending the emails is going to be, negligible to free. I get asked quite a bit, what email programs do you use to send out emails to scraped leads? Well, it really depends. Let me give you a link. There we go. Sorry, it took me a second to find it. It'd be nice if I showed you what I was looking for here. So here is GMass. You got to be careful whenever you're emailing bulk emails to contacts that you have not contacted before. If you're going to load in, for example, if you're going to scrape a list of, say, 1,000 dentists, and then you want to load it into a scraper, well, you would have scraped it, and you want to load it into an email system, right? Because you want to email this list of 1,000 dentists, and you now have their email addresses. What kind of an email program would you use for that? Well, if you used the typical ones like MailChimp or SendGrid or something like Sendinblue, or help me out here, what would some of the other general ones be? Even from a CRM system, whether it's Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign, you're going to have a problem sending emails to contacts you haven't contacted before because they monitor things like bounce rate, delivery rate, spam complaints, and things like that. So actually, one of the best ways to send an initial email to a cold contact is to use Gmail. Now, the reason why I say that is because they don't have all these super strict restrictions in place on what you can and cannot do with the email. The reason why most people don't think to use Gmail is because it's not made for bulk emailing. It doesn't have the ability to monitor the amount of emails that are being sent, and it also doesn't have the ability to bulk send. So you would need to bolt something onto your Gmail, such as GMass to Gmail. So this is simply an add-on to Gmail that will allow you to send to, let's see, I believe it's up to 500 emails a day. There is some of these add-ons that allow you to send up to 1,000. And you can build your list with it. You can have your templates that you send out, and then it will also track how many emails were successfully delivered and how many of them were even opened. And some of these can even send you open notifications that will all run through Gmail. So that's the route that I recommend for a cold email that would go out. Now, if you're wanting to put your leads on a drip email sequence because they've already responded once and now you want to be able to follow up with them, I would recommend moving them from the Gmail that you use for cold email to a traditional email marketing platform. Since they've already responded once, they're no longer a cold contact. So if they responded once and I did want to put them on a drip sequence, I would move them on to a traditional email marketing platform, something like MailChimp. In terms of the delivery rates and the open rates and things like that, as per, whenever you're scraping lists, you're going to take the list of contacts that you've scraped and pulled back, and then what you're going to do is you're going to verify those emails with an email verifier. All that's going to do is just tell you that the email actually does exist. Whenever you send out cold emails, the reason why scraping in higher volume is recommended, because getting anywhere between honestly a 1 to 3% response rate is going to be pretty good. So if you sent out 100 emails and you got 3 responses, that's going to be pretty good. So between 1 and 3%, of course, if you send out 1,000 emails, then getting between 10 and 30 responses is going to be really good. Now, of course, the nature of the subject line and the email itself is going to have a heavy determining factor on whether or not someone's going to respond to you, right? But yeah, that's to be tested, and you can try different subject lines and different emails. And of course, it's going to depend on what you're sending out. I always recommend in the content of the email to focus on a pain point or a need that business niche and has, instead of just emailing them something like, hey, I can get you ranked #1 on Google, or are you interested in buying my marketing services? Emails along that standpoint where it's more of a salesy buy my product email, it's definitely recommended to model the emails according to, hey, I noticed that you're struggling with this in your business, according to that, and it's more of identifying a pain point. And then in the email, it should be short and sweet, letting them know what you could do to help them alleviate that, or just recognizing a pain point, letting them and having them contact you and letting them know you could help them out. Usually the shorter, the more to the point, the better the pain point that you identify, the more the response that you're going to get. So that's with the scrapers. Now, with physical mail is definitely probably the least used lead generation strategy for marketing agencies. And I think it's because it costs more money. Let's see, physical. Now, with physical mail, there's a lot of different things that you can do to get someone to open your mail. So whenever you're sending an email, one of the primary barriers to sending an email is getting someone to, well, one, getting the email. Whenever you're scraping for emails, you're not going to get 100% of the emails. Whenever you scrape Google My Business listing, let me show you this. Whenever you scrape Google My Business listing, right, and it says it's scraping the Google for emails, right, what it's going to do, it's going to come in here, for example, Denver Dentist, if you can see the screen, and it's going to scrape the address information on and phone numbers off of the GMB direct, right? But where the problem comes in is, where is it getting the email from? So it's going to come in here, and it's not going to get the email from the GMB. There's no email in here, and that's for a very specific purpose. So what does the scraper do? Actually, what the scraper ends up doing is crawling in here, pulling out the address and phone number, and then it sets off on its own little mission to find the email address. So what it's going to do is it's going to find the website link. It's going to go into the website, and it's going to start scraping, looking for a contact us, and it has whatever algorithm on what pages it tries to find, and it's going to scrape looking for an email address. And here we go. So if that email address is visible and you can copy and paste it or see it in the source code, it's going to scrape it. So for example, for here, the scraper would come in, pull out the address and phone number of Icon Dental Denver, continue onto the website, and if they have published an email address, you're going to get that email address pulled out. So what's the problem with that? Well, there's no problem. I mean, hey, info@icondentaldenver.com seems to be a decent email address. And hey, if they're publishing that email address on their contact us page, it is logical to think that if you sent an email to that address, it's going to get answered, right? Makes sense to me. But then again, the question is, who's going to answer the email? Who's going to get the info at email? Is it going to be the owner to the dental company? Is it going to be the dentist himself? Or is it more likely going to be the front desk receptionist woman who's filtering the emails, and anything salesy or non-relevant she deems, is she going to discard it and get rid of it? So one of the problems with scraping emails is, one, getting an email, which honestly, if I scraped for, let's say, 1,000 dentists information off of GMB, I'd probably be doing really good to get 30% of those email addresses. So maybe out of 1,000 that I scrape, definitely if I got 500, that would be amazing, which would be 50%. If I got 30%, that would definitely be acceptable. So there's the challenge of getting the email, but when you do get the email by scraping, chances are it's the general company email, which you should be able to send an email to and get it delivered, but then the challenge is getting them to open that email and not discard it, right? So that's the challenge with scraping. You need to scrape a lot. And then whenever you email, you're hoping that it does get sent, delivered, does not hit the spam box, and actually hits their inbox. And then you're needing that whenever it gets opened, that it's read by the right person that will respond to you. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong in that entire sequence. And most of the things that can go wrong will go wrong before someone's even able to open it. Okay, now let's talk about physical mail. Now, the big difference with physical mail is that you don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to get opened. It's going to get opened, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you can deliver the mail to the right address. Whereas with email, of course, you don't know whose email you're getting, who you're addressing, if it's being scraped, that sort of a thing. And let's see. I'm trying to pull up okay. So I'll give you a couple examples of what helps you to get physical mail opened. And one of the top responses that I've had agencies report to me whenever they're sending out physical mail is putting something in the piece of mail. If you get an envelope and it looks like it's a salesy envelope, or you don't know who it's coming from or whatever, that might get opened up by someone other than the business owner, right? Or not forwarded onto them. So, for example, I got a great letter sent to me the other day because I'm really big about throwing things away. I open my mailbox, and if it's not something that I'm pretty convinced I need to be opening, I throw it all away because my mailbox stuffed full of stuff, and I don't want to bring it all inside. So I go right to the trash can that's right there. I filter through all of it, and then I take the rest upstairs. I got a letter the other day, and it had the word confidential on it, and it didn't have a send from address on it at all. It was just postmarked to me, confidential. There was no send from. And I've actually talked to a marketing agency that uses that tactic, but I received one of those the other day. And who is it from? A credit card company wanting me to sign up for a credit card. But it definitely got me to keep the piece of mail. It got me to open it. But the agencies that I've spoken to that do physical mail, one of the things that they do when they send out mail is they do what's called lumpy mail. So with lump email, and if you want to read about what is lump email, this is the site talking about it, and then I'll send out a link to a company that actually drop ships lump email for you. They'll put something in the lump email, and it's usually kind of witty. Like, for example, some of these companies that drop ship the lump email for you, they will shred fake money and put it in there, and your letter would be something like, hey, are you tired of wasting money on your marketing? And of course, you're referencing the shredded money that you put in the envelope. And it's different, it's unique. You sent them something that's physical, and obviously, you're trying to get a response from them. I've had really good feedback on agencies using that, particularly with the shredded cash. But then I've heard of people sending about anything else you could possibly think of in lumpy mail. The pill bottle. I've talked to people sending the pill bottle in lumpy mail. The pill bottle usually is about pain medication to solve whatever pain they're having in their business, something according to those lines. And they probably got a lot of other options. Let me see if I can find self-mailers. But the primary point of the lump email is that it's going to get a response. And whenever you get it, of course, something's inside, you can feel it, you don't know what it is, and you're definitely going to open it. And I'm not finding the site that I saved that does lump email done for you. If any of you have ever used a lump email service, let me know. And here's another link to read up on lump email. So lead generation is difficult. And look, if you talk to these local businesses, even they'll tell you that they get phone calls and emails all the time from marketers and marketing companies trying to solicit their business. And is it overran? Well, yeah, to a large degree it is. And being able to set yourself apart is really going to matter. And how much is lump email? Well, it depends. I mean, without sending something in the mail, I mean, you can send out physical mail for as low as 50 cents a send. Definitely you can send it for $1 a piece. If you send out 100 of them and you got 10 responses, that would be great. But whether or not you're sending out the emails, and if you're sending out emails, you definitely want to be able to monitor who opened them. Or if you're sending out the physical mails, you need to be able to follow up with an effort of cold calling. I know the whole point of putting together the email marketing approach or the physical mail marketing approach or both is to hopefully drive them to a landing page or get them to contact you, whether or not it's by email or through phone number. But the agencies that I speak to that use the mail scraping strategy for lead gen and physical mail, they have a call strategy that begins, maybe 2 days after they think someone has received the physical mail, or they'll make phone calls timely whenever they can track to know if someone opened up the email. But there's definitely a cold call strategy to it that's implemented. I've never talked to an agency that is trying to sell a significantly priced marketing service and had people just, have their phone ring off the hook because they sent physical mail, or have their email inbox explode because they did an email marketing piece. The ones I've spoken to that not only tell me that they do this strategy, but continually do it and have been doing it over the past several years, say that if they didn't have the phone call portion in place, where they're even doing the cold call to follow up with those that they've sent it out to, that it wouldn't be nearly as successful. So I do want to mention that I don't know of any lead generation strategy that I've heard agencies repetitively using that doesn't have a component to it where there's a direct phone call to solicit that business. I really don't. Maybe I'm just not talking to the right people, but there it is. Now, in terms of the, yeah, I'm getting actually hit up here on Skype by someone on the webinar. In terms of the phone numbers, Yeah, that is worth addressing. Look, phone numbers are something that I tread around the subject matter a bit. It's not my strong point, but it is true that whenever you're scraping leads, there's there's three ways to contact a scraped lead. You have the physical address, which means you can send a physical mail piece. You have the phone number, which means that you can call them or leave a voice drop. And then, of course, if you have the email, you can send them an email. So you have the three different ways to communicate with them. And yes, it's possible to use all three. But, on voice, whenever it comes to making the phone calls, voice drops are not a bad idea to look into. Again, it's not my strong suit, my background, but there's software out there that would allow you to leave voicemails without ringing the telephone and do it in bulk. So you would have a fairly generic message. Let's say if you were targeting a dentist in Denver and you wanted to leave all of your scraped dentists the same voicemail, and there happens to be 300 of them, and you certainly don't want to make 300 phone calls, and maybe you don't want to also try to talk to 300 different people and get through to a decision maker. So you would rather make a voice drop maybe around 6 p.m. to all of them and hope that you just get a call back, and that may make things a lot easier for you. So that is an option. There's a lot of different software out there for voice drops. With there's also a decent amount of compliancy issues with voice drops. So I tread a bit lightly on it, but for the agencies that are into voice drops that use it for themselves, they do get results with it. As probably with about any lead generation effort, if you're really able to fine tune the details and dial it in, it'll perform for you. But physical mail came with the best feedback per amount of effort and money spent into it on return. And I think a lot of that is just because everybody's getting so many emails and solicited for marketing services. That's a local business. It's really crazy. I mean, they're getting solicited by their hosting company itself. If you have a client or you talk to a local business that has their website hosted with HostGator or GoDaddy or whoever else, chances are they're being solicited by the hosting company to have a website built or buy their website builder or pay for SEO services when it's just really monitoring and software. So they're getting hit up there. And then, of course, they're getting solicited by anyone else that can find them and send them an email. Their contact forms are getting spammed, and they're probably even getting the voicemails. So I think that's probably why at this point in time, physical mail is really standing out to a lot of people. And I still did not find the drop ship bulk mail sender. I might have to follow that up next time unless someone finds it. Weird. Okay, so in regards to pulling it all together, I have a separate group that I train on. Let me see if I can just screenshot this workflow. I had shared with me and permission to share this, a workflow from an agency that, let me just pull this up and share my screen real quick, that does this full time, and they have a very specific workflow with how they pull it all together. Okay, now we're sharing the screen. So they start out by a direct mail letter. Of course, this is already after they have scraped the leads, right? So they'll put together a direct mail letter, and of course, to fill you in on the work that's done before they send the physical mail letter, they've already built out their landing page, right? They already know what they want to offer that niche market. And by the way, if you're going to be sending the physical mail or even an email marketing campaign, because of the way that the scraping works, I would definitely, you need to choose a geo target that you're going to hit and a niche. That's really not debatable, because you want to be as fine-tuned to your audience as you can. So being able to, for example, choose a dentist or carpet cleaning company or cosmetic surgery as a business category that you're going to go after, it will help. And then, of course, you want to choose a geo-target to hit. So this particular agency first sends out a direct mail piece, and then they have 3 different prospecting actions that are taken as a result of what happens with that direct mail piece. Now, if they don't have any action at all from the individual that they sent the direct mail to, then they have VAs that will send a Facebook message or a LinkedIn contact request, and then they'll send them a direct message on Facebook or LinkedIn, and then they schedule up a follow-up phone call number 1. So this is where the phone call comes in. That is really important. Now, if the prospect happened to have called in off of receiving the direct mail letter and no immediate sale is made, but they get them to answer the questions, and they're going to get their email address and send them the link for more information. So then they would start them on a drip email campaign if they called in, but they're not able to get the direct sale, and then schedule a follow-up phone call. So with any sales strategy, this is just an example outline of your workflow that should be in place if you're going to invest into a lead generation strategy, because physical mail and sending physical mail out takes time to create the campaign. And of course, you're going to have to pay money to send the emails out. And then prospect action number 3, visits a landing page. If they visited your landing page, of course, it's going to be hard to figure out if they did or not. If they visited the landing page, the only way that you're going to know is how, if they opted in. So on the landing page, you should have an opt-in of some sort. Whether that opt-in is simply them, filling out a form to schedule a meeting, or filling out a form to receive a consultation, or download a PDF, or whatever it is, then that would be the opt-in. So if they did go to the landing page off the physical mail piece and they opted in, then you're going to kick them off, of course, on a drip email sequence. And then because they landed on your landing page, you can go ahead and start retargeting on them, right? And then follow up until sale or endpoint with the drip campaign. So that's, off of the landing page, how it's handled. Now, if you did get them to process an order and they have a one-time payment, then you want to put them into a sales funnel where you would upsell them into recurring services, and of course, offer recurring services, then sell them on monthly recurring services. Why may you want to first collect a one-time payment? Well, for example, if you're selling SEO, maybe it would just be the setup cost because it's a lot lower and it's less commitment, and they need on-page done regardless. And of course, with a lot of SEO services, they would also get their directories and some social media accounts set up depending on the level of package that you're purchasing. So a lot of times, because it's a lot easier to get a client to commit to a one-time payment on a service that you can identify as being, really necessary for them, whether it's setting up their directories or setting up retargeting, it's a lot easier because it's less money and less commitment, then you can upsell them into more. But the overall point here is that you need to have a whole lead generation follow-up sequence put in place with tracking to make it work, so that it's not just doing a lot of work towards emailing or physical mail pieces or voice drops. And what a lot of agencies do, if they don't get someone that contacts them direct, either through email or telephone, they don't do anything else. That's the most popular way of lead generation for marketing agencies. They'll put the effort into it. They may build a landing page, figure out a target market for the marketing campaign, but after soliciting for leads, whether they're using voice drops or physical mail or email, if they don't get directly contacted, that's where it stops. And I think that's the reason why a lot of agencies that try to get one of these lead generation strategies working and in place fail, because you need to have a proactive outreach. And in this one, it's this pink little box right here. That's the follow-up phone call. Now, let me point out that in this whole sales funnel here, where's most all of the probability going to go for the lead? Well, if you look at probability, they sent out the direct mail letter, and would most prospects that got the direct mail letter visit the landing page and fill out a form? No. Would most people that get the direct mail letter open it and call the agency? No. So what's typically going to happen with everyone that gets the direct mail letter? No action is expected. But then they're making, with a VA, they're making this additional effort to reach out to the person they want to contact, the decision maker. And Facebook or LinkedIn, they have a VA workflow for that. And then after they make the connection request, then they're going to send them the Facebook or LinkedIn message. And what would that message say? Something pretty simple, introducing myself. I sent you a letter. You should have gotten it in the mail. It's a lot easier to remember what you sent them if you put something physical that was in it, right? If you shredded cash and stuck it in there, or whatever else you stuck in there to make a witty physical mail piece about, they're going to remember that. And also the chances are if there was something in it, it might have gotten forwarded to a decision maker. And then that's all points to the follow-up phone call. So although this whole sales funnel looks really pretty and you think hope you'd get a lot of people that are going to opt into your landing page and pay for something immediately or call you and pay for it, all of the actions taken are going to be by the VAs reaching out by Facebook or LinkedIn, referencing the physical mail piece that was sent out. And then right here is where all the magic happens. It's the follow-up phone call right there in pink. And that's what's producing the majority of all the sales for this agency that's been doing this for several years. And without that, what you could call cold call, it probably would be considered by many as a failed lead generation strategy. So I can't emphasize that enough because it still requires the cold phone call outreach. However, in this situation, it would have already had a physical mail piece that went out to get them to know who you are and recognize your name, and then the Facebook or LinkedIn connection request with a message that's sent out to set up the phone call that goes out. And yes, it is true that for that pink square right there, could you do a voice drop instead? Yes, of course you could, but you're still going to be dependent on getting a phone call back as opposed to initiating it. So, a lot of this is going to be trial and error and tweaking it, but at least this is more of an introduction to the non-traditional ways of lead generation. Of course, for marketing agencies, it may be more mainstream, some of these methods, whether it's voice drop or physical mailing or emailing. But still, a lot of agencies are either they are relying on referrals to get leads, or the marketing agencies are making the cold calls, going to networking, joining the local chamber of commerce or the local BNI, or able to network themselves into doing local online marketing training or education sessions, or able to land a speaking event, etc., and taking that route. So yeah, a lot of lead generation strategies, and whether or not it's going to work for your agency is going to be dependent on even your personality type. If you don't have a problem picking up the phone, beating the streets and getting those leads, then hey, you're always going to win doing that. But a lot of people really do not like any sort of cold outreach. It's an aversion to them. Although, you may say you don't mind doing it, but you just find yourself never doing it. Maybe you told yourself, oh, I'm going to reach out to 10 new prospects a day, and then it doesn't happen. And then this is why probably for those personality profiles, it would help you to not have to rely on cold calling, although it's recommended and to help with the follow-up sequence. But at least you've already reached out to them in a couple of different ways. They probably already know who your brand is, and you should have gotten some responses as well if you're doing a sales funnel like this through, of course, email, some phone calls that are coming in, etc. So again, I know probably about 20 agencies that run something similar to this, and this is what they rely on for lead generation. Of course, once you get enough clientele base, you should start getting referrals, right? But keeping this always running helps. And then for all those leads that they were able to get a hold of their email address and get them to respond, or of course, if they were able to call them and get their email address or get them to opt into the landing page, that puts all of those leads that didn't pay for a service on a drip email sequence that would, could run indefinitely. Maybe it's just sending out one email a month over a 12-month period. But at least what it does is it gets your leads in a warming pool, and it's a little bit of outreach here and there and here and there, and at least it's just not discarding every single person that's ever responded to you interested in your marketing services. Businesses get busy, maybe in the first quarter of the year they were interested in marketing services, and then they got busy just like you get busy being a business owner. And oh my gosh, and now it's the third quarter of the year, and they're not as busy now, and now they want to revisit marketing services. And lo and behold, here goes a drip email from you that month. They get it and say, that's the guy we spoke to. That's the company. That's the company that had us on retargeting as well, because we hit their landing page, and that's the brand that's in my mind, and now it's going to come around and I'm going to contact them. And it really happens that way, but it takes time. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's really building a big lead list, and it's keeping a lead warming engine running. And then it's, being consistent with it and tweaking it over time, and being able to monitor, to be able to tweak what you're doing to see what works best. And then, of course, as you run this enough, you'll be able to see, okay, well, I ran one marketing campaign like this for plumbers, and then I ran one for dentists, and I ran one for cosmetic surgeons, etc. And then it's also a good way of testing, okay, well, is there a particular niche or business category that is easier to solicit, maybe not as competitive? And then if that you find one that you get a surprising response from that seems a lot better, much more responsive, maybe easier to close on sales, possibly less of a barrier to talking to a decision maker, well, it's pretty common sense then that your next marketing outreach campaign that you would do would be for probably the same niche, but targeting a different geo target. So now maybe instead of targeting Denver, you target Dallas, or you target Seattle, or wherever. And the agencies that take this route typically include in their pitch that they only accept X amount of clients in that geographic area to market for, and then that's it. And then sometimes they even offer exclusivity. For example, I agree to only market for one dentist in this zip code, or the entire area, or whatever. And then that adds a sense of urgency maybe for the client or your lead to sign contract with you. Maybe if they do like you, they think that you have a lot of insight and they would like to do business with you, and they'd like to be able to get exclusivity so that you can't do business with anyone else in their area, because maybe you're able to show them that, hey, just screen sharing here, but see that list of 400 different dentists? Yeah, I've hit all of them, because we're capable of doing that. Anyhow, so then they usually offer exclusivity in a certain area, and then once they get enough business in that area, they move on to a marketing campaign to the next area, and it just keeps it running. So one of the observations that I do have about agencies is which is the I forget how the saying goes, a doctor that doesn't take care of his own health, or the shoemaker that has shabby shoes. A lot of agencies don't market for their own agencies the way that they would for a client. If you had your number one client come to you and you're doing everything you possibly can to bring them leads and make them successful, you should take that amount of effort and dedication and commitment and determination to get them leads and apply it to your own company. Now, I know you're not getting paid to, but that's how you stay in business, make business, and that's how you exist. And if you don't get leads and close leads, you won't be in business to help anybody else. So keep that in mind whenever you look at a sales funnel like this and think, oh, the amount of effort that would go into it is pretty heavy. You should be your most important client, and you got to put yourself first before your clients and keep your lead funnels running. And I mean that even if, whether or not you're a small one person agency and you've now got 5 clients, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm starting to feel busy. Maybe I need to hire a VA now or look to get a project manager or whatnot. Do yourself a favor. Do not stop running your lead generation engine, assuming that you've built one. If you built one similar to this and you've got enough clients to where you feel like you're busy, don't stop running it. No one's standing there forcing you to, you know, take more sales, and therefore you shouldn't just shut down the engine. What a lot of people do that have built a good lead generation engine, as soon as they get enough leads and clients that they feel busy enough, then they start turning to, oh my gosh, I need to hire a VA or a project manager. I need to start restructuring my company so I can scale, etc. But what do? They stop running their lead gen engine, and then they shift their focus to restructuring their business to be able to handle more sales. And then, a couple of clients drop off, and then another one drops off, and now all of a sudden the company's barely breaking even. And then they shift all the attention back to, oh my gosh, I need to get this lead generation engine back up and running. And that takes a lot of time and effort, and it's not instant. And then now all of a sudden they start losing money, and it's just chaos. So, and this is probably also a common situation that you would observe if you speak with enough local clients. What is the most popular point in a local business's life when they are proactively reaching out to marketing agencies and they're urgently looking for digital marketing services? When do they do this? When they're hurting. Not when they're good, not when they're successful usually, not when they're looking at profits rolling in through the door on a monthly basis and, celebrating the success of their business. That's not normally when a local business is going to be looking up where they should be spending their money on a marketing service to get even bigger. No, they usually reach out to marketing agencies when they're hurting. So they've, now maybe they're breaking even, maybe they've started to lose money, or maybe they've just done everything they can to attain a traditional sales goal and they continue to fail. But normally when they reach out for help in marketing is when they're hurting. So my point remains to any local business as it would to you. Don't just continue to invest in your marketing when you're hurting or when you're doing good and you're busy. Keep it running. And if you don't want to take new leads because you're too busy, look, raise your price. That's all you got to do. That's all that you need to do, and keep them in the warming pool. So would you take the sales phone call? Well, why not? But just let them know that your rates are too high. Or if you really don't want to deal with it and you're really overran, then fine. As soon as someone calls in, let them know that you'll put them on the waiting list and get them on the warm drip email campaign. Or create a drip email for your waiting list, that whenever you could say, okay, I'm ready for more leads, you can then take everyone from the drip email that are on your waiting list and move them on to an active engagement drip campaign. So even if you're so overran that with business, and again, if you're a one-man show, that could just be 5 clients. So I don't mean that you're huge, but there's no reason to not keep the lead gen engine running. Even if you just let them know that you're not accepting clients right now once they do make the phone call or write the email or submit the contact form, and you put them on a drip sequence letting them know that they're on the waiting list. So there's no reason to shut it down. And as long as you have it running, it should continue to build. And of course the physical mail pieces are the more expensive part, but you can continue to run the email portion of it. And whenever it comes to scraping and sending out the email and, hunting people down on Facebook or LinkedIn, this is something that a VA can be trained to do with workflows. And we're talking a VA that, you could easily get a VA at $500 or, the bottom end of the barrel at $300 full-time per month out of, the Philippines or India. And they can run it for you. You're gonna have to put together workflows and train them, but that's all it would take to keep the machine running. That way, whenever you are ready for more leads, all you have to do is just reach into your bucket, pull them out, and sell them, and it would always be expanding. That way, your lead pool is always going to be there. And then, of course, you can figure out other ways to keep them actively engaged, whether or not you would want to start even some sort of a podcast and give direct business owners advice on online marketing, or have sessions where you just answer questions and give free advice and direction and whatever, if you have really wanted to keep that lead pool running. But a warm lead pool is definitely something that's a capability with this sort of a lead generation strategy. And certainly, I unless you're into good with cold outreach and sales guys that are going to do a lot of cold calling and hard closing, then I would always make sure that I have a strong lead warming pool, so that I have a large audience of leads that were once interested, that are still paying attention to me, so that whenever I do want to ramp up my sales, I have an active audience. Okay. So as usual, if you have any questions about this, or if you want to email me, you're welcome to at paul@ebrands.com. I have a list of physical mail providers that I've had reviewed by different agencies. I can send over to you if you're interested in that, as well as reviews of different scrapers. What I don't have is much experience or reviews on the voice drops. So that's something that you have to venture out on your own to find, unless anyone has any shout outs on good voice drop software. Otherwise, I would recommend for you to look into it, and of course, choose a geo target to hit, a niche audience. Pick up one of these scrapers like Local Scrape and play around with it. You're definitely going to get a lot of leads, but the question is, what do you do with those? Try to send out some email marketing towards it, and have a landing page to push them towards, and do some phone call follow-up, and just start with that. And I recommend doing it yourself at first. I think it's a mistake to hire a VA or virtual assistant right away, and then have meetings with them while you're training them on what they should be doing, and you're going to rely on them to figure out everything and document it and put it all together. I would anticipate that sort of an effort failing. I think this is something that you need to put together yourself and execute yourself. And once you start getting positive results from your own execution on it, only then should you bring in a VA and train them on it, once you have determined that, yes, you have positive results and you have executed those positive results yourself. So yeah, it's a bit time consuming in the initial period to set up before I would recommend pulling in a VA, but I think it's pretty necessary. Does anyone have any general questions on this sales funnel that's been presented, or any lead generation questions in general? In terms of the service, some of the initial services that are offered, well, on the mail pieces that I've helped to edit and create for people, whether it's email or physical mail, we're not talking about individual services in those mail pieces. It's more about identifying the pain points. For example, hey, I was looking for your company and I couldn't find you in Google, and maybe I could help you out, something like that. Or, I landed on your website and I couldn't get it to show up on my mobile device because it's not mobile responsive. And, a couple words about that and how you could help them out. So it's more about identifying the pain point and keeping it simple. Okay, cool. Well, I'll wrap it up then. Again, if you have any additional feedback on that, paul@ebrands.com, send me an email. You're also welcome to schedule a consultation with me. Let me throw you my Calendly link. And you'll be able to see where I'm available from the Calendly link. But in terms of scheduling, I think the Calendly link only has available, it's 15-minute or 30-minute slots. If you're needing more time than that, just go ahead and schedule as per whatever availability is on there. And then if I need to extend with you, I will. Just put your notes in there and make sure to leave your phone number. A lot of people schedule, but they don't leave their phone number. I need to put notes in there. All right, everyone. Well, hopefully that's good food for thought. And until next time, Do some digging into this. Send me any questions that you have. And if you have any feedback next time on our webinar, feel free to bring it up and it will help everyone else. So hopefully you have a great rest of your week and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.